and the recording has started.
Great, thank you. There we go. Everyone can see the blue login screen, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, before I get started on the actual demo, just a couple quick housekeeping items. I know some people from your organization have already seen InSight, but has everyone on this call? Should I, or would it be more helpful to cover some of the basics, logging in, searching, viewing documents before we dive into the more specific, what makes it a digital mailroom solution? Or should we skip the one-on-one stuff and dive into the mailroom stuff?
Hi, Michael. This is Laura Valentine. I'd appreciate, I have not been on any of the calls, so I'd appreciate a little recap.
Okay, great. That's kind of what I was thinking. I know that we did some demos and some people here have seen it. I didn't know if those had been shared or if the recordings had been passed around. I didn't want to bore you with stuff you've already seen. But if there's people that are new to InSight, let's do a quick dime tour of the basic functions before we get into what makes this a good mailroom solution. All right, then a couple other items before we get started. I do just want to point out that the purpose of today, we're going to log in to this demo environment with some generic setups and some generic fake documents. It's not meant to be an exact one-to-one replica of what you'll see in your environment, but it's a proof of concept for you to visualize and see how it would work. Second thing is, I'm not reading off a script. I don't have any PowerPoint slides to show you. We're going to log in and we're going to kind of do this live. So do feel free to ask questions throughout. You don't need to be polite and save them all to the end. Feel free to interrupt me. You can unmute yourself and just interrupt me. I promise you won't hurt my feelings. Or you can use that little hand raise icon in the bottom center of your screen, and we'll get to you. That being said, I'm just going to log in. You'll notice that I'm logging in using the username and password configuration, but I could also log in with single sign-on. We use the G Suite, so ours shows up as Google. But I want to be able to spoof different people so that we can show you how different users see the same environment and how they interact with it differently. So I'm logging in first as Billing Content Manager 1. That's just a generic person who can log in, see things, check their mail, run searches, share, the basics. Later, we'll show you what an exception manager looks like. And that's the sort of user that can process things that don't filter through the usual assignments, effectively managing exceptions. So the first thing you see when you log in is your dashboard. This is kind of your 5,000-foot view of what's going on in your system. We can see things that were recently edited, recently viewed, if I had favorited any items that I want to get back to quickly. We have a little ticker of mail that's been scanned in the past 7 days. This being a demo environment, not much is coming in, but in your case, it would be here. We could even break this little pie chart up by, say, department type. So you could see how much HR versus how much AP mail has come in. Down here, and we'll get more into this in detail later, but I've got my unread mail queue. I've got another little ticker that shows me how much mail is coming in, that sort of thing. But what I like to show people first is how to run a search. So let's get started with that. Sorry, I'm just silencing my notifications. Okay, so let's get started with the search. To do that, I'm going to use my little navigation ribbon over here. You'll notice throughout the demo today that this stays static, which means it's always quick and easy to get back to the dashboard or kick off a new search or look at my favorites or assignments or log out, things like that. There's no nested menus that you need to memorize and navigate through. It's all just happy little buttons. So to run a search, I'm going to click the magnifying glass. I get my little flyout over here. This is organized by different document types. So I've got bills versus invoices versus starter forms, that sort of thing. In your case, it might be a different organization structure. And here I've got my search fields. And these fields are custom made. We've thought up some that would work well for the demo. In your case, they're going to be the ones that we already agreed on. So for example, I want to find all mail that come from company AA. So I'll just punch that in. and I get a few results. Hypothetically, if this is a company we do a lot of business with, I may have gotten hundreds, if not thousands results. So maybe I want to further narrow that down, in which case I'm going to say from company A, but it's invoice number 44. Okay, it's in there twice because this is a demo environment. Someone probably just uploaded it the second time. But ideally, you'd get one result and say, okay, perfect. It's shown me results that where both these things are true. So when searching, the more information I can give it, the less results I'll get. So I'm just going to click on the document that I want to see. Again, very simple, very easy to use. You can see in this case, we've scanned the envelope first and then the contents, but it's very easy to kind of navigate around between the pages. I could also click if I prefer that. From here, I can zoom in, I can zoom out. I can print, save, email, do all the standard document viewer things. If I forgot what I clicked on, I might click over here and say, okay, it's this company AA, it's invoice 44. Here's all my information repeated. Does that make sense so far? Everyone's with me? It's pretty easy stuff, but I want to make sure. So that's the traditional kind of vanilla way of running a search. What we can do is take it a step farther than that by using what we call OCR data. And if you're not familiar with the term, OCR is just optical character recognition. It's what transforms this from a picture of your invoice or your mail into the text that's on it, meaning that I can highlight this, I can copy, I can paste it, but importantly, I can search on it. So let's go back to our example from earlier. And let's take out my little invoice number. So say hypothetically, I've got a problem going on. My boss has come to me and said, hey, I need you to pull all the mail containing the invoices where AA sent us coffee. There was a problem with the coffee shipment. So, okay, you got an invoice number? You got a date? Like, no, it was coffee. Find it. Well, that's not one of my fields. That's going to take forever. What am I going to do? Open up company A, AA invoices and look at every single one and find out when they sent us coffee? That's going to be a nightmare. Well, no, because what I can do is I can use full text search and say, okay, show me all the mail that came from company AA, but with the word coffee somewhere in it. I have 2 invoices with the word coffee on it. Okay, let's look at one. Up it comes. Now, if this was a very long document, more than 2 pages, and I didn't want to read all, say, 2-3 dozen pages, I could further use that OCR data right in here to find the word coffee. So the full text searching lets me find the documents I'm looking for, but then within the document helps me find the page or even the line that I'm looking for. But it's kind of cliche to say, but it's like adding Google to your documents. It just makes it that much easier to put your fingertips on exactly what you're looking for when you want it. Is everybody pretty comfortable with our search engine in here before I move on to what you can do with the document once you've found it? Okay, I see some thumbs up. Thank you. Helpful. Okay, so I'm even going to collapse this, get a little of my real estate back, because I don't have a giant screen. So once I found the document, as I told you, you can download it, you can print it, you can save it, you can email it, you can do all the standard stuff. But what I like to show off is kind of, again, how we take things a step further. And one of my favorites is this little share button. So again, we'll use a hypothetical situation. I'm looking at this piece of mail. Something looks a little funky. I don't think that's how much coffee we ordered, but I'm not sure. So I want my friend Jeff to look at it. So rather than calling Jeff up and say, hey, log into InSight, search for company AA, put coffee in the full text search, and then you'll get 2 results. Click on the second one. That's a hassle. I don't want to dictate that to Jeff, and he doesn't want to hear it. It's much easier for me to be looking at this document. I'm going to hit the share button, and it's going to give me a link. You can even click one button to copy the link. And I'm going to paste it into Google Chat. or Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever chat feature you use. Or if you're old fashioned, you can put in the email and send it that way. Or if you're collecting links to documents, maybe you put them in an Excel sheet. The point being that when Jeff clicks on that link that I just chatted him, it takes him to the login page, of course, because security is important. But rather than him going to the dashboard, it's going to bring him right to this document. So it's a quick, easy way to just kind of send on the fly documents to each other while keeping them all in InSight. You don't need to download them and email them. You just send them a link and then they look at it for themselves. And then you can leave comments for each other if you want. Now, we often get asked, well, what if I want to share the document with someone who doesn't have an InSight login? So that link wouldn't work for them, like an auditor who wants to see that we have this documentation or that documentation. Or maybe a third-party vendor or a different department within my company. Maybe legal wants to take a look at this, but the legal department doesn't have InSight logins because this isn't their stuff, but they need to see an invoice or whatever it is. Well, that's pretty easy. What I do while looking at the document, I can come over here to permissions. And by the way, this is where I can see who can see the document. So in this case, the billing department can see everything permanently. I may have, the interns have read-only access between this month and that month, or, HR has no access, things like that. But this being a demo environment, it's pretty simple. But what I wanted to show you is right here. Permissions assigned to external users. External users mean people who aren't in the system, don't have an InSight account, like my auditor, for example. So I'm going to create a new one. And it's just going to have me fill in a few blanks. So I'm going to say like mike@acme.com. I grew up watching Looney Tunes, so all my examples are Acmes and anvils and rocket roller skates and stuff. But hypothetically, that's the audit company. We're going to decide what rights this Mike person should have. If they're an auditor, we probably only want to give them read-only rights. But if this is a third-party vendor or legal department, someone within my company that I trust, I might give them edit or management rights. But for Mike the auditor, read-only is fine. I'm going to say how long they should have access to this document. Maybe the audit period is only for a week or a month. So starting today, we'll give them till, we'll say this time next week. So the 7th. And then since this is going to send Mike an email with a link, I can customize it. So I can say, per your 2024 audit request. Oops, let's spell the word audit correctly. Just so Mike has some context. He's not getting like blind emails from nobody. And then I would hit create. Now I'm not going to do that because for all I know, Mike at Acme is a real email address and I don't want to spam him. But that's the last step. I would hit create. And then that would appear here as a new line. And then I could edit that line or delete it if I thought that his rights needed to be extended or removed, what have you. And by the way, that email looks something like this. You've been shared with a document with read-write permissions, although in Mike's case, it was read-only. He would click on View Document, and it would take him to a very truncated version of this view. He could see all the pages, he could see the information, but that's it. He wouldn't have a navigation ribbon, he wouldn't have permissions or history or all that fun stuff. Just a way to view the document and nothing more. Does that feel helpful, useful in your day-to-day, or at least once in a while during audit time? Okay, more thumbs up, thank you. Okay, since we're already talking about the tabs up here, view, annotation, we talked about permissions, that kind of leads nicely into this little history tab. And the history is exactly what it sounds like. It's the running dialogue of everything that's happened to this document since the beginning of time. The fact that it was created, it was uploaded, it was modified, it was viewed, it was edited, it was assigned, it was routed from this person to that person. It's basically you're running audit trail of this document. And since there's so much going on here, it's also searchable by username or by date, or you can even filter by category. Say, I don't care about the views, just show me the edits, that sort of thing. The point being that you have a full audit trail in all of your documents at all times for transparency, for accountability, for, again, audit tracking.
I have a question, Michael.
Great.
And I'm going to call, I'm a newbie card here on, this is my first call attending. So can we go back to just the overall service itself? So mail comes into our organization, you're setting up rules so it gets sent out to the appropriate people we designate that are on this call, right? Like finance would get certain things, HR would get certain things, so forth, right? So
Correct.
they,
That's what makes it sort of a mailroom solution, which is, remember in the beginning I was saying, well, first we'll talk about the vanilla InSight experience, which is where we are now. The digital mailroom solution is what allows us to do what you're talking about, which we haven't really looked at yet. But that's fine. We'll get to it, and maybe your question will actually help me segue into that half. So,
okay,
yeah.
all right, I'll hold then on questions. Thank you.
No, I wasn't trying to discourage you from asking or saying to hold. I was just kind of anticipating where you were going. But yes, that it helps to bring the big picture into this. The idea is that we're hosting a PO box for you where your customers or vendors or whoever is sending you mail sends the mail. Our staff is checking that PO box on a daily basis. We're opening your mail. We're imaging it, both the envelope and the contents. And then based on department name, whether it's HR, finance, or IT, what have you, we're routing it to kind of a department head within that department. And then they are from there kind of doling out, okay, well, this is coming to finance. I'm the finance mail manager. This is Bob's and this is Sue's and this is so-and-so. And they're kind of doling it out from there.
Right,
then,
okay, so everyone on this call are the owners of those certain areas and will be anticipating getting a login and receiving the mail that belongs to them only, with the exception of a few administrators, correct?
I'll have to rely on Jeff and Megan for that. I wasn't in charge of the attendee list. I don't know who's on this call.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yep, great question. Keep them coming. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions about what I've kind of dubbed the vanilla portion of InSight, we can move on to what makes it a digital mailroom solution, unless anyone has any other questions or something they wanted to see or something I showed you that wasn't quite clear. We want a little clarification before we go on to kind of the 201 portion of the demo. No? Okay. Well, we can always come back to this later. So let's go back to the dashboard and we'll kind of revisit one of the features that I was alluding to. The my mail, my unread mail. Think of this as when you open your email and your unread mail kind of flows to the top and it's bolded. That's what this is. So all these documents are still in the general population. They're still searchable, findable, that sort of thing. But for whatever reason, whether it's an automated rule or because someone has manually assigned these documents to me, they're in my mailbox, meaning it's my mail. And it's sorted by date and time. You can see the newest stuff floats to the top, the oldest stuff floats to the bottom. This being a demo environment, there's some old stuff in here. But all I do, this is just a shortcut instead of using the search. I'll just open this first piece of mail. Just click on it. Brings up the viewer just like I was used to seeing earlier. I see the envelope. I see the actual piece of mail. It's my mail. Just as if it had come into my desk in paper form. I open it up. I do my due diligence, whatever I need to do. Maybe I signed it to someone else. I move on. I go back to the dashboard. That piece of mail that I just opened has dropped off my new mail queue. And now I can open the next one. Oh, someone has their hand raised. Please go ahead. Who is it that has their hand raised? I'm sorry, I just saw the hand pop up.
It's Boo Pen. I believe he's on
Yeah,
mute.
I just found how I can unmute. So Michael, I have a quick question. Is there
Sure.
a date stamp and time stamp that we can have on each invoices that is received there? Like a date on which date this invoice came in or the document came in with the time? Is there a place where we can see?
Yeah, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but are we capturing the scan date as one of the search fields?
Yeah, the scan date will be captured and the box number.
Yep. So one of your search fields that we looked at over here will be scan date, but also within the document itself. Let me just open that back up. I apologize for my slow laptop. Struggles to stream meetings and load web pages. But yes, one of those fields will be searchable, but it's also going to appear here as one of your labels. So
And
instead of order date, it'd say scan date. Oh, scan date's right there.
and the scan date should coincide with the date received. The mail is usually always scanned the day it's picked up from the post office. So that
Okay.
can't be associated with date received.
Yep, 24-hour turnaround. But it's nice to be able to verify that.
All right. Thank you. That was all.
Yeah, good question. Okay. And then if you do want to look at your history, we can toggle this to red mail. So those documents don't just disappear on their own. But again, they are still in general population. They are still searchable. Now there's a lot going on behind the scenes that allow these documents to come to my queue. As I said with you guys, what we're going to be doing is sorting by department. And then it will go to kind of a department head. And from there, the department head will dole them out. And they can do that by, they'll be looking at this piece of mail. So I say I'm department head, I'm a head of HR. I've got 12 items in my unread mailbox for the day. I'm going to look at this and then maybe take a peek at this, say, oh, okay, this is an applicant sending in a resume, whatever. That is Bob's department or Bill's department. So I'm going to hit this little button up here. I don't know if anyone noticed it, but it's always been there since we've been looking at documents, and say, this is not my mail. But it's going to give me two options. It's going to say, this is not my mail, and I don't know whose it is, saying, I don't know what this is, but it's not mine. And that kind of sends it back to the queue. But it's not my mail, and I know whose it is because I want to assign this to Bill. So I'm going to click on that. And it's going to have me enter the name. And this is just a list of all my InSight users. So I don't need to memorize how to spell people's name. I'll start typing, and it's going to kind of autofill. So I'll say Bill, and we'll assign it to Bill Content Manager 1, which is a very generic name. Maybe it's Billy Manager. Or maybe I know it's not mine. It doesn't belong to me, but I know it belongs to a different department. I can send it to a group. So we've created a group called Billing Department. We have groups called HR and groups called Finance and groups called IT and all your different departments. But in this case, I know which individual user it belongs to. So I'm going to send it over there. And I can even enter a reason so that they have some justification. And I get a happy little response saying, it's been sent. And then it goes off my plate and I can move on to the next one. Rinse and repeat until my queue is empty. Does that make sense as far as what the end user sees when they're loading their documents, viewing them, and then kind of doling them out and assigning them? Does that feel easy to use? Is there any questions or concerns at this point?
Question from Laura. So is there an audit? Is there an audit trail so you can see if you're looking up a piece of mail, you can see where it first went and then where it was sent to?
Yes, that shows up in the history.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, another good question. Okay. So next I want to look at, well, what happens when documents don't meet those criteria? Do they just, like, when something comes in and the sender didn't put a department name on the envelope? It doesn't say to HR care of Laura or to finance care of Bob or attention Jeff. What happens if Iron Mountain can't tell whose mail this is? Does it just go into a black hole? Well, no, it goes to the exception queue. The exception queue just means mail that doesn't fit into any of the rules. So I'm going to log out of my Bill account, and I'm going to log in as the exception manager, and we'll see what that looks like. And you'll notice I just logged out. I'm logging right back in. This is the same environment, but it's going to look different because my role is changing. It's going to have different options. And by the way, we will create as many security groups as you need. So you can have folks who can only see documents that belong to their department and not others. Maybe you have folks who can see everything, but they have read-only rights in one department and edit rights in another. We can get very granular with that security rules. But here I've logged in as my exception manager. You'll notice that it looks very similar. I even have an unread mailbox, but no one's assigned me any mail. What I don't have in the other view that I do have here is my unrouted mail, meaning mail that's been sent to the exception queue and the system doesn't know how to handle it. So I'm just going to grab one at random. And I'll read this and go, okay, I see why this didn't have a, why it didn't route properly. It's missing, it's just sent to Thomas. And Iron Mountain doesn't know where Thomas works, so it was not routed to a specific department. But I know where Thomas works. So I'm going to, you'll notice we've got this extra option here, reroute mail, that we didn't have in the other viewer. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to send this to billing department. That's where Thomas works. Update and send. Get a confirmation message. And then I can either go back to my dashboard and look at my unrouted mail, or you'll notice on my navigation ribbon, I've got an extra icon. There's my unrouted mail right there. So I can pick a new one from there. And then it's just rinse and repeat until my queue is empty. Look at this one. See, this one's been sent to a recipient of subrat. No idea who that is. That's wrong. That's not a real person. That's why I rounded my exception key. I'm going to change that to my good friend Billing Content Manager 1. Update and send. Off it goes. Oh, we have another hand raised.
Yeah, hi, Michael. It's
Oh, there we go.
Question for you. Will we all have access to the exception mail, or is it going to just be a few selected people? How does that work?
It'll only be a select people that have access to the exception queue. It's up to you to decide who those people are. It doesn't have to be a few. It could be a dozen. It could be all of you if you want to take turns and share the load, or it could just be one lucky person. That's up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Any other questions about the routing and the mail and reassigning, things like that?
I do. So once it reroutes and say that mail needs to go to that specific person or department going forward, will that be updated in the system to automatically route going forward?
No, it won't.
So how do we do that if a specific user needs to, or a specific mail needs to go to that specific person from there going forward?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. And I've talked with customers that have had success with both, or either or. But the two most common are either to reach out to your vendor, if this is a common, a frequent flyer, someone that's constantly sending you mail, and say, hey, using a new system, if you want your invoice paid quickly from now on, can you put attention to finance or attention to billing department on it? Then it'll get routed and paid quicker. And vendors like getting paid, and they're usually pretty happy to do that. Or you can reach out to us, Iron Mountain, and say, hey, I need a new rule made that says when it's to Bob, then that's finance, send it there. And we have automated rules.
Perfect.
That answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And typically we only want to go through the effort of making those rules if these are frequent flyers. You don't want to make a whole new rule for a document you get once or twice a year. That's kind of what the exception queue is for. You go for the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Another question from Lena.
Yes, hi, Michael. How are you? We receive a lot of checks, actual checks, and those checks could be from payroll, for example, or garnishment return, or accounts receivable checks, or some kind of refunds. How do you guys handle live checks?
That's partially up to you, Jeff. I know
Okay.
we did talk about this, but I believe and I'm doing this from memory, so Jeff or whoever, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But with your live checks, we're still imaging the check so that you'll have it in here. You can see that it was received and the date that it was received on.
Okay.
But after we image the check, we're putting that aside and then mailing it to you on a regular basis. I don't remember if it's daily or weekly.
We go ahead and scan it so you have instant access to the images of the check,
Mhm.
and then we forward the check to you based on your instructions. So generally, we
Gotcha.
have a default process. Anytime you receive a check, send it here.
Mhm.
And then what we do is, as we receive checks, we package them back up and forward them to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Some
then-
customers want their checks sent to them, and some want it sent to like a lockbox service.
Yeah, I think what we do have, we have like various checks, and we kind of need to double check. Something absolutely needs to go to PO box, and some of the checks needs to be probably shredded and reissued. So it's kind of, we cannot tell you 100% it has to go to PO box. I think there is a couple of, based on the departments, department heads needs to tell us what to do with those checks, because it could be, very different outcomes for, for those checks, kind of going forward. Another question, Michael, you mentioned we're going to have a PO box, right? And
Yep.
I do believe if you forward mail, and I think it's only good for like 12 months. So then what happened after 12 months? Like, do we need to change like mailing address for OnTrac to PO box in Georgia, or how it's gonna work?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, Jeff, is that something we've already talked about? Whether they're going to be auto forwarding or if they need to reach out to vendors and give
Well, I
them
think in the
PO box.
beginning, there will be a forwarding request, but ideally you would like to, people who regularly send you mail, you would like to get it updated with them so that it goes to the PO box. So that
Okay,
you're not relying on a forwarding request from the U.S. Postal Service.
right, because I don't think you can kind of forward for a long period of time. I think there is some kind of, forwarding. Yeah, and
There
the
is a
forwarding.
time frame, and you'd have to continue to renew the forwarding. So
Okay.
ideally, you'd like to get it done as kind of an address change, if you will, with those vendors who send you mail on a regular basis.
Okay. Yeah, for
Another great question. Thank you.
yeah, for some of the vendors, it's not going to work. For example, some of them like do not accept PO boxes. For example, if it's like a tax vendor or something like that, it has to be like a physical location somewhere. But yeah, I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Any other questions? Or anything you want to see again? Or we're hoping to see and haven't seen yet? No? Okay. I'll take
I will
silence.
I'll ask a question relating
Okay.
to Elena's questions. So how are we notifying vendors? Again, I'm sorry if this has already been vetted out, but how are we notifying vendors, or are we just relying on USPS forwarding initially?
That's really up to you. And to your point, I don't know if that's already been discussed internally with your company.
Yeah, initially we'll be replying on forwarding through USPS, but ideally what we would do is an address change with individual vendors to say, please send mail to this new address. Our address has changed, etc.
And do you help us with the template on that, or has that been discussed on other calls? We need to take this offline to another call.
Well, we have discussed that on other calls, but I have to admit, I can't tell you there's been a template made or an organizational structure created on how we, if you will, ensure that all vendors are notified of that address change.
Okay.
We
I'm
know
gonna
what we've
keep it-
done or what other customers have done
Yes,
and how it's done, but obviously we don't have your vendor list, nor are we going to reach out to all your vendors and say our address has changed, right?
right. Okay. And then I want to take this as a follow-up to another call,
Yeah.
and I would like to understand best practice.
Yes, and there should be some planning to it. I agree with you, Laura.
Okay.
Great
Thank-
question.
Great. So there is one last feature that I do like to show off on demos, but before I do that, were there any other questions or any other features people wanted to see or look at? Okay, I'll take silence as everyone's happy and fully understands. Either that or you're like me and you'll think of a great question about 5 seconds after we hang up here today. And if that's the case, don't worry, you can send your questions by email, or if there's enough of you that have enough questions, we can do another one of these sessions. But something I always like to leave people with is pointing out the little help button in here. And that's because in most systems, the help button is not terribly helpful, but InSight does a good job of it, so I always like to show it off. So there's different kinds of help. I can download guides and resources. I can even download the entire user manual. If you want to read the entire user manual, it's about 300-page PDF, and become an expert and never ask us another question. You won't hurt our feelings. That's fine. We don't gatekeep information. It's all right there for you to learn. I can watch tutorial videos, similar to like looking up how to change your oil. Oops, I clicked the wrong thing. Sorry, this is what I get for trying to talk and click. But I can look up videos. It's similar to like looking up how to do something on YouTube. You get a nice friendly voice talking over a video showing you exactly how to run a search or create a new user or reassign and reroute some mail. I can search my help and my frequently asked questions. I can read about the digital mailroom, how to search, how to view, search hints and tips and tricks and keywords and shortcuts and all that fun stuff. It's all right here. But my favorite type of help is this little Coach Me button. And for that, it asks you, do you want to watch a video? And I can watch a quick video on, as I said, it's in a friendly little voice talking over exactly how to do something. Yeah, and I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, but you get the idea. But we can do this training, and it's really that. It's a little digital assistant, and there's a bunch of pre-made topics here. There's a bunch of pre-made topics here. Or I can search for what I'm trying to do. But for this example, we'll pick something quick, like a quick search. And I like that it dims the background and it tells you exactly what we're about to do. So I'm going to hit next, and it's going to tell me what to do. It's kind of holding my hand and saying, click here. And it's not going to do anything else until I do that. And I could ignore it. I could go run a search, or I could log out or whatever. It's just a helpful little thing. So I'll click there. Okay, I can do that. Now it's saying type in a number. Okay, or type in something. We'll throw a number in there. Or rather, we'll do like mailroom. Okay, well, I found a bunch of examples with the word mail in it. This being a mailroom demo, that makes sense. Pick one. Well, I can do that. Let's say we'll pick this one right here. And it takes me to that document. You notice that wasn't like a scripted like video that ran on top of my screen. They were little helpful tips telling me exactly what to do and how to do it and where to click. And now that it's complete, it's gone away. I can do another one if I want, or this is my document that I was looking for. I'm off to the races. I'm good to go. Here's my document. So I see two types of people get a lot of mileage out of this little Coach Me button. And those are new people who need like a little bit of a helping hand before they get their feet under them. Or they're people who have an account but don't live in the system. They're not in here every day. They're your VPs or presidents sort of thing who want to be able to come in here and search for mail, but they're not doing it every day. So they'll log in and they'll go, I know Jeff showed me how to do this, but it's been like months and I don't want to bug him right now. I just want to find invoice 44, but I don't remember how. And they'll go in here and they'll do the little coach me thing for a memory jog. But it's very helpful to kind of have that sitting there ready and waiting to help whenever you want. That being said, the more traditional route is always an option. We have a 1-800 number staffed by real human beings that is open 24/7, 365. You can always call and get help that way. But if you'd rather read a guide or if you'd rather have a little VI thing coach you, those are options here too. The point being that we don't just build this thing, give you the keys and wish you luck. We're here for support throughout. So with the 15 minutes we have left in the time here, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff and Megan and anyone else that needs to talk. Unless any other attendees have any last minute questions or things that they wanted to see in the demo. If you are being too polite and waiting for the end, this is your time. No?
All right, I'm gonna ask
All right.
again. I got another.
Okay, good.
Subject lines. Is there a way to make subject lines as thorough as possible, or?
Not clear what you mean by subject lines.
Like the file
So-
name comes in so that when people are receiving the mail, it tells them sort of what's in it, or what do we expect in that file name?
Well, you have to remember, we read the envelope. We don't
Okay.
read the mail.
Okay,
So we can be as detailed as the envelope is. Meaning, if the envelope says it's from Verizon Mobile Services and it's to OnTrac, that's all we really know. Because
Okay.
we don't open it and look at it and go, it's an invoice, it's a request to add a new mobile phone, to upgrade your phone. We don't look at the mail and see what it is. If that envelope says it's from Verizon Mobile Services to OnTrac, attention Laura, then we'll put that in there.
gotcha.
But we don't actually review the mail or read the mail. And that's for a lot of different reasons, right? It's a best practice and a policy because your firm, attorney firms, any firms don't really want us reading the subpoena that came in the mail, right?
Yeah.
They just want us to get that subpoena to the right person.
Okay,
So we read what's off the envelope, we get whatever we can, and we apply it and route it based on what's on the envelope. You can kind of equate this really to what could be a paper-based mail service. I get a envelope, it's assigned to, Michael. Michael opens the mail, reads it, and distributes it. If Michael doesn't need to open the envelope because it says Laura on it, he just puts it in Laura's box. But if someone needs to open it and read the mail, it's got to go to somebody who makes a decision based on reading the mail as to who it should go to. I mean, does that make sense?
yeah,
Yeah, because again, it can be hard to decide, if we are reading the mail, what to do with it, because we don't know your business, right?
right, that makes sense. I think that's a good explanation for everyone to hear, so we all understand what we're dealing with too. So thank
Right.
you.
Now, I think Michael pointed it out, and this discussion has been there. And in the very beginning, we talked about it. Rules can be applied to the system based on what is on the envelope as to where things go. An example of that might be anytime you get a piece of mail where the sender is Verizon Mobile Services, that should always go to Angie. Okay, well, we can create a rule that does that. Or maybe anytime we get an envelope where it's really attention HR, that should go to Laura. And again, we can do that kind of thing. And one of the things to think about is accumulating and documenting those rules so that potentially downstream, we can get back with you and add more and more detailed rules to automate the routing of the mail versus it having to go to somebody who makes that decision manually. Does that make sense?
Yes, and can the administrator change a rule in the system? So if Verizon's not set up, can we go in and just add the rule, or do we need to contact you?
No, that's something we do in the background if they're automated.
Okay.
Manual rules can be done by you, but automated rules have to be programmed in the background.
Okay, thank you.
There is a lot that you and your admins can do, like create new users, delete existing users, upgrade or download their security rights, that sort of thing. But the automated rules that you're talking about, yeah, our programmers would have to write those into the code in the background.
Thank you.
We have a raised hand from Elena again.
Yeah, hi, Michael. My question is, are you going to have a manager from Iron Mountain, or let's say in case any questions or something is not loading, or like a missing page, for example, situation? We did have some company before that we use for mail outsource, and sometimes just it was like a missing information somewhere, so we have to kind of go back and check. So in the situation like we have a question, right, and it's kind of pertaining to the mail, are we going to have a manager, or it's kind of like a 800 number situation?
It depends on what type of question you have. You'll have a few different ways to contact. If it's something to do with the scanning, like it looks like a page was there, why is there no envelope, that sort of thing. You'll have a contact in our operations center, someone who's in the building where your documents are getting scanned. If it's more of a technical question, my page isn't loading, I can't log in, there's an error on the page, you'll have a tech support number to call, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then if you want something drastically changed or more services, that's more in the sales and design sort of thing. You'll have someone like myself or Jeff to talk to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, short version is you can ask any one of us any question, and if we're not the right person to ask, we'll direct you to the person who is. You'll never be sorry for want of help.
Is it possible for you to send us a list, if you haven't already, of like those particular examples and who would be our contacts, or will that come more closer to when we go live?
That'll come closer to go live. That gets handled during the implementation phase.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Megan, I think I talked over you a little bit. What were you going to say?
We were saying the same thing. All good.
Oh, okay. But yeah, because some of those people haven't been assigned yet. They come from a pool of folks who do the same sort of role. So I don't know who belongs to you yet. So I don't want to give out names, but that's something that will happen during implementation and onboarding.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, another good question. Okay, with that, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to kind of turn the reins back over to Jeff and or Megan to wrap this up. We've got 9 minutes left on our time, and I don't want to make anyone late for their next thing.
Thanks, Michael. I didn't have anything else. Just wanted to make sure we gave a little bit more space in case any of those questions popped up. We don't want to hit the end meeting button and then we have a question 5 seconds later. Laura, I'm looking at you. You have anything else for us?
No, I appreciate you answering all my questions, and I look forward to connecting with you offline or through implementation as well. So thank you very much for this presentation today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was great. And interaction is always fantastic. All of the questions. So glad we have engagement, and it really helps you to get your brain around, what this is going to look like. So this is great. All right. Well, with that, we'll let everyone go. Thanks so much for your time. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thanks for this.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.